rock and roll fans. My name is Brian Kajagian, and I am the editor-in-chief of ClassicRockHistory.com. I feel very lucky and extremely excited today to be with a man that defines the term classic rock legend, Don Brewer of Grand Funk Railroad. How you doing, Don?
I'm good, Brian. How's it going?
I'm pretty good. Listen, I got to ask you something right off the bat, because this has been really bothering me for a long time as a rock and roll journalist. I write about Grand Funk Railroad a lot. and because people love you guys. People love your music. And so I have written a lot of stories about your band. But as a journalist, as an editor, I'm always thinking, should I write Grand Funk or should I write Grand Funk Railroad? Who better to ask?
Yeah, there you go. Well, it's either or. It's when we first started out, the very first record, it was Grand Funk Railroad. And then the fans just started calling us Grand Funk. So the second album that came out was called Grand Funk. So it's just, we've gone back and forth over the years using either or. So, the formal name is Grand Funk Railroad, and for short, it's Grand Funk. That's as simple as that. That's it.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah.
I've looked at all the album covers. I've owned all the albums, of course. I mean, I'm 61 years old, so I'm the type of guy who was a big fan, who was 15 years old, when All the Girls in the World and Beware came out.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
So, I am that generation. I once heard Bobcat Goldthwait, the comedian, who's like my same age, said that we were the Kiss generation. I said, no. We're the Grand Funk generation.
Grand Funk generation.
Right? Grand Funk came first, man. Grand Funk inspired Kiss.
Yeah, we did. I mean, Gene and Paul have said, have told us, that we were a big inspiration on them. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was sort of a void, I think, in the early 70s because the Beatles had broken up and they had pretty much connected with everybody. And I think you guys filled that void. I think you guys and Elton John filled that void of rock and roll music that connected with everybody. You had those commercial hits, but you also had those powerful rock and roll albums.
Yeah, when we started out, we really didn't have, the hits. We were an album-oriented band. That's when FM underground radio was king, and you could make 7-minute songs like, I'm Your Captain Closer to Home and Inside Looking Out, and you'd get airplay. And then when it changed around 1972, it really changed over to being a hit format, FM. So we had to follow that curve if we were going to stay on the radio. We started making 3-minute hit singles. That it was sink or swim. That's what we had to do.
But you have to be very crafty to do something like that, because you want to maintain that rock and roll edge that you guys are all about. I mean,
yeah, we tried to. Yeah, we tried to keep it true to the form of Grand Funk Railroad, and we were always like a high energy band. That's really what it was, and very uplifting. The music, I think, was not dark. It was up. And so that we always stayed with that.
Yeah, and I think the song that really defines that whole concept of what you're talking about is "We're an American Band." I mean,
that's one of them.
I mean, that's such a powerful song, and I would love to talk about that song, because
sure, yeah,
pretty much celebrating
50 years. Wow.
50 years. Did it go by real fast?
Unbelievable. Yeah. This is all going by too fast. Everything, every day, every time I see my grandkids, they've grown another foot. It's like, oh my God, it's amazing. So.
Well, I think that helps, in life as we get older, is, time moves fast, but then you look at your grandchildren, your sons or daughters. I don't know, do you have sons, daughters? What do you have?
I've got a daughter, and now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 grandkids, and only one granddaughter. They're all boys. So, yeah.
Wow. Okay. So your family has expanded.
Yes.
Pretty quickly there.
Yeah.
But it's so joyous, right?
Oh my God. Yeah.
It's what's really important in life.
It is.
I think musicians, everybody starts out, just trying to make it the big time, and it's all about yourself. It's all about your music. But then when you have kids, it changes your perception.
It's all about them. Yeah. It is.
Right. So, okay. So let's talk about, if you want, "We're an American Band." Did the lyrics come first? Did the melody come first? How did that come together?
Well, that we were, I like to tell the story. We were being sued by our former manager Terry Knight because we had found out that he was taking all the money, and we had signed some pretty bad contracts, and he wanted to renew the contracts, and we refused to renew the contract. So he started, so we left him, and he started suing. So he was suing, we were out on the road playing shows, trying to make money so we could continue. And, as we're flying into these towns, I'm looking down out of the airplane and I'm going, we're coming to your town. We'll help you party it down. That was the thought that came to my mind. And I really wrote the song around that. I didn't, I'm not a guitar player. I don't know a lot of chords on a guitar, but I had my little Martin acoustic and I sat in my apartment and I came up with these chord changes for the song. And I came up with the lyrics, up all night with Freddie King playing poker and 4 young Chiquitas in Omaha. Sweet, Sweet Connie and Little Rock had all these little stories I was going to weave into the song. Didn't really have a punchline. I didn't have the title or the punchline of the song. And I'm practicing the song. And just one day I went, we're an American band, and it wasn't because I wanted to wave the flag. It was because it sounded great to sing it. It was like, the sound was right. We're coming to your town. We'll help you party it down. I had that part, we're an American. There's the answer. We're an American band. Sounded great. So that's where the song came from. And it's, the first time I heard it on the radio, I went, God, that sounds like a hit record. Before that, after we recorded the song, I really didn't get it. I was like, okay, it's a song. It's, it's got a lot of energy and stuff. When I heard it on the radio, though, I went, yeah, that's a hit. That's a hit song. It just had that sound, Yeah.
So even in the studio, after when you were mixing it, you still weren't sure it was going to be.
I wasn't sure at all. No, I remember that some of the people from Capitol had come into the studio in Miami to listen to the playback. And I'm out in the studio, they're in the control room listening to it, and they comes to the end of the song and they're jumping up and down and going crazy, and I walk in and I go, you mean you really like it? And yeah, they really loved it. So yeah, that was it.
Wow, that's some story, and it's pretty exciting that you just sang that song to me. That was pretty cool. Yeah. So you played the song for your bandmates. What did they say when they first heard it? How does that work? How does that process?
Well, I brought in the chord changes, and I brought in the general layout of the song, and the way we always did put songs together, whether they were Mark's or mine or anybody's, is they would come from a jam. Really, we would Mark would have an idea, he'd start playing an idea, I would throw in my drum part, Mel would throw in his bass part, we'd hammer out an arrangement, and that's really kind of what this was too. I brought the song in. Played my little acoustic guitar, and we said, well, we've got to have this, we've got to have that. And my whole idea was to do what I thought was a hit record format, which was verse, chorus, bridge, chorus out. Back at that time, that's, you'd listen to all these songs that were 3-minute hits, and that's what they were really. So that's what this song was, is put a verse, then a chorus, then a verse, then a chorus, then do a bridge, do a little change up, and then we put in a guitar solo after that, and then the chorus out. So that was the arrangement.
That's how it came together. Does it get to a point where like Mel plays a bass line and you go, whoa, I was not expecting that, but I like it?
Oh yeah, we always came up with our own parts, and we'd play off each other. And if something wasn't working, then you'd try to hammer out what wasn't working, whether it was the drum part or the bass part or the rhythm guitar part or whatever it was, but we always wrote our own parts, really. That's what made the band great, I thought, was that it was it was a band.
Did you always gel with Mel? I mean, the heart of a band is the rhythm section, the bass and the drummer.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And Mel and I always were on the same page, when we first started as a trio, we were rehearsing in the local 542 Musicians Union Hall, and we'd go in there, like 5 o'clock. Nobody was there in the place, and we'd have the whole place to ourselves. and we just jam out these songs. As a trio, the whole thing was we had to fill up a lot of space. The bass and the drums had to fill a lot of space, because you didn't have an extra keyboard, you didn't have an extra guitar, you didn't have a lot of extra instrumentation, and if Mark was off on a lead, you had to fill up all that empty space with bass and drums, so Mel and I were always on the same page with that. We were big observers of what Hendrix did as a trio and what Cream did as a trio and Blue Cheer, and we were, trying to do the same thing, except the fact that those bands were more blues based. And we were really an R&B based band, being from Flint, Michigan with Motown just down the road. We were huge, Motown and R&B fans, so we took our R&B formula and cranked it up and put it on steroids. And that's, that was Grand Funk, that's kind of what made us unique, I think, from the other, big power trios.
Yeah, I mean, you were perfectly named. I always thought that. I said, this band.
Yeah, I thought the name was appropriate too,
Yeah.
And that came from, growing up in Flint, Michigan, where we're sitting at a railroad crossing watching the Grand Trunk and Western Railroad cars go by, over and over and over. And then, when music changed to funk music, the term funk came up. So we just did a play on words: Grand Trunk Railroad, Grand Funk Railroad. Yeah.
Yeah, funk music had become very big in the early 70s.
Yeah.
But you guys had this funk group, but it was also so powerful. I mean, you had this, when you and Mel played together on so many songs, there's this powerful eighth note rhythm that's just this pulsating groove that you guys laid down that was unlike anybody else.
Yeah. I think so too. It just worked. We had a kinship and a brotherhood, and it really worked.
And that's it, because you're a band and you're a family and you have to spend time with each other every day.
Yep.
How about on the days when you guys had off? If you had days off, did you hang out together?
Well, I tell you, when we did quite a bit. We used to Mark had a farm, as we got more successful, Mark had a farm, and we got these little ATV vehicles, and we used to go out and just run all over his farm, race each other, and I mean, it was amazing. We didn't break our legs and our necks and all that stuff back then, but we used to have a lot of fun hanging out together. But we used to, our whole thing was work, really from 1969 to 1976, basically was the Grand Funk era of making music. We were under contract with Capitol to perform 2 albums and do 2 tours every year. So if we weren't in the studio working on an album, we were on the road doing a tour, so that was those 6 years, really.
Yeah, it was nonstop. I mean, that's the way a lot of bands and artists delivered albums. It was like almost.
We were under contract too,
I guess that was the typical record contract.
That was the 60s and 70s. Yeah. When it got to the 80s, all of a sudden, things changed. The lawyers stopped being so much on the side of the record companies and decided that the money was with the band. So they went behind the bands and started telling the record companies, well, the band, may have signed with you for 2 records a year, but they can't do 2 records a year. They'll give you a record when they're ready. So all of the 80s bands were like taking 2 or 3 years to make records, rather than, we used to crank out a record in a few weeks, so.
I would imagine that would probably take some of the pressure off of having to write songs, deadline.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
I mean, not everything will come to you on a plane, that.
No.
So you played,
but I think it took away from the spontaneity of it, and that's what I like about early 70s music, is that it's honest, it's not overly thought out. It's not overly recorded with all of the gimmicks and all of it. And it's not perfect. There's mistakes that are left on these records. And, when you get to the 80s, everything became perfect.
That's a really good point.
It was a click track. Everything was overdubbed, everything was, it wasn't a band in a studio making a song and a record anymore. It was, it was all of these little snippets of overdubs, And then the producer would and the engineer would edit everything together, and then that would be the record. Yeah, it would be perfect, but kind of lost its glow, I thought.
Yeah, I guess there's sort of, like you said, there's a soulfulness in just saying, let's just get this down and let's do
Yeah.
it. It's
Yeah.
like playing a nightclub or playing a show.
It's very similar to live. And we were under a budget. We had to get this stuff done, so you had to make compromises. But I think I still think a good record is about, number one, the song, and number two, the performance, and then last is the recording of the thing. Because if you don't have a good song in the first place, it's a bad song. And then if you don't have a good performance, it's really not worth anything either. So you got to have those two things first.
Wasn't there there's the old saying, if you can't play the song on a piano and make it sound good.
Oh yeah, and Elton John was such an example of that. Where he had all of this big production going on with these great songs, but when he could just sit behind the piano and sing, just him and a piano, and they would be just as inspiring as they were in the recordings. Those are good songs.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the song, some of those songs. I mean, it's like, okay, it's a C chord and now it's a G chord.
Yeah,
but it's that melody and those lyrics that are flowing over those two chords or those three chords, and you go, wow.
Yeah, that's it. To me, that's it.
Yeah. So I want to also talk about, I'm a New York guy. I grew up in the Bronx, a Yankee fan, but Shea Stadium was right down the road, right down the Major Deegan on the Grand Central Parkway. And you played there. Was it 1974 when you played?
No, I think it was 1971.
Oh, you played 71. Okay.
I think it was 71. Yeah.
And you sold out that show faster than the Beatles sold out.
Faster than the Beatles, yeah. And that's a great claim to fame, but I like to say it's because they got their ticket selling process together. I mean, look at how fast everything sells out now. It's instantaneous because everybody has a computer. I mean, back then, it took a long time when the Beatles, sold out Shea Stadium, because they didn't know how to sell the tickets. They didn't have the distribution for that kind of a sale, And then when we came around, it was more coordinated. Yes.
So what's it like, I mean, playing in a place like Shea Stadium?
Scary.
It's scary. I mean, just looking at it, it's scary. I guess.
Yeah. It was very intimidating because, we flew in on helicopters to the back of the stage. So we flew in over the audience and over the stage and the setting and everything. And it was like, and here we're kids, we're 19, 20 years old, and come down behind the stage. And the other thing that was weird about it is that they wouldn't let any of the fans on the field, so here's the stage at like home plate, and then all of the audience is up in the stands.
Yeah.
There's nobody on the field, so there's a huge separation between us and the audience. So it was very very intimidating. Yeah.
And plus, Shea Stadium is right next to that airport, LaGuardia Airport, that you probably landed in. And so I don't know if were there planes flying over. Do you remember hearing planes?
No, we didn't have an issue. Of course, I wouldn't have noticed it anyway.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I mean, that stadium is notorious for, you're watching a ball game and there's planes flying over.
Planes coming over, yeah.
I mean, it's right next to LaGuardia.
Right there, yeah. Now they tore it down, didn't they?
They tore Shea Stadium down. They built a new stadium right next to it called
next to it, right.
Yeah.
And it's called, what is it called?
Citi Field.
Citi Field, okay.
Yeah, named after, I guess it's Citibank.
Yeah.
Beautiful stadium, but, old fans miss Shea Stadium.
Yeah.
Billy Joel played the last show there. Paul McCartney showed up to play there. But it's got to be tough, though, playing on a stage in a stadium, just hearing yourself play. I mean, how did you?
Yeah, and the sounds, the sound system, compared to today, the sound system and the monitors and all that stuff back then were not that good. It was loud. The whole idea back then was to just make it loud so you could fill that amount of space, and the quality wasn't there. Now, they've got all of this time delayed, stuff with the speaker, speaker system, so it's time delayed. And sound, it sounds perfect. And and of course the stage monitors are much better and everything. Yeah, back in those days, it never really sounded great on stage in big places, because it just wasn't there. The quality of the sound system just wasn't there. So you just made do, with it. I mean, it would always sound better if you were in a smaller room because everything would be a little more confined. But in those big places, it took a few years to get that up to par.
But as a musician, sometimes it's so loud where you can't almost hear nothing. Are you almost sometimes playing on instinct while you're playing?
Yeah. You just know what you did last night, and you just do it again because it doesn't sound like it did last night. It sounds a whole nother room, So you just kind of imagine, this is what it's real. They're getting it out there. They must understand it, and you have to have faith that the sound man is doing his job.
Now, do you use earphones? Do you use
I
earplugs?
know anymore. I use earplugs because I'm trying to save what hearing I have left, But we tried in-ear monitors a few times, and we didn't ever work it out that well. We play too loud on stage for that kind of a thing. The bands that do the best with that are the ones that have the equipment off stage or underneath the stage, and there's really no equipment on stage except the drums. And then they can play with the in-ear monitors, and they can get a good mix that way. But we're too loud for it. Still are.
Yeah, well, so I also want to talk about, All the Girls in the World Beware came out in 1974. You had monster hits off that album. Some Kind of Wonderful.
Some Kind of Wonderful.
Which you sang lead vocals on.
Yeah, I sang. I shared. Mark and I shared leads on it. Yeah, back and forth. Yeah.
And then you had another huge hit with Bad Time.
Yeah.
I remember, like on AM radio, every 15, 20 minutes, Bad Time would come on the radio. I mean, that song was all over the place.
Great songs.
So that was a huge selling album. You had a lot of hits on that album. And then I think you released Caught in the Act after that, the Caught in the Act live album.
Yeah, Caught in the Act was another live record. Yeah.
Which foot stomping music, man, the drums on that.
Yeah.
Killed it, man. That album opened up with foot stomping music and that drum sound. I mean, you look to take very special care of your drum sound because your drums sound great on everything.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
And a lot of that's tuning, right? Tuning.
It's tuning. A lot of guys have their road guy, their crew guy, do the tuning and stuff. I like to do all the tuning myself. I have a very specific formula for how I tune the drums, and and so I can guarantee that the drums always sound pretty much the same way every night that way, Yeah.
And you could hear it. I mean, if anybody who knows your catalog well and who's been listening to Grand Funk all these years, every album, the drums sound great. That's you're carrying that all the way through your entire career. I've always believed that a great rock record sounds great if the drums sound great.
Yeah.
If the drums don't come right out of those speakers and hit you, it's sometimes it'll sound flat or it just won't bite you. It's when those drums and which is going to bring me to another couple of albums that you guys did. And after Caught in the Act, you released the Born to Die album.
Right.
What was up with that cover? That was a very interesting cover.
Well, the band was definitely in the throes of breaking up, and we knew we were coming to an end. And so, we went, okay, this is the way to bury the band, that's kind of that was the thought that was going into it. So, yeah.
It's one of the most interesting covers in rock and roll history.
It is kind of a little morbid.
Yeah. But it's a great record. And there was one song that you wrote on there that I thought should have been a huge hit single called Take Me.
Yeah.
Which was just a killer cut on that album. And that wasn't the first single though, right? Wasn't there was another single on there? Or was it the first single, Take Me?
I'm trying to think. I know that was one of the singles, but
Sally, right? Wasn't Sally a single
Sally,
too?
Sally might have been.
Yeah. But then that album came out in January of 1976. And then in the summer of 76, you put out what so many people on Classic Rock History declare one of their favorite Grand Funk albums of all time. It's Good Singing, Good Playing.
I agree. I loved that record.
And that's a much sweeter cover too.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and I loved working with Frank Zappa. God love him. He was he was able to get the band through it. Because we, as I said, we were in the throes of breaking up on Born to Die, and when we decided to do another record, Frank had to pull us together. So he was great.
How did he do that? How did he pull you together? What was it about?
Well, he just just to get the camaraderie back, and to get the focus on playing rock music, get the focus on having a good time in the studio, I loved it. I became good friends with Frank, and I have nothing but respect for his legacy. I mean, he was just a true genius. Really.
It's the sound of the album is amazing.
Yeah, he went for over compression, because he was listening to FM radio at that point. It was hit format FM radio, and all of the records were being very compressed, so that they would pop, on the automobile speakers, So yeah, he just overdid the production on that with compression. I thought it was a great sound. It really was. Yeah.
I mean, it was. And the first single from that album was "Can You Do It?" Is that correct?
Yeah. Can You Do It? Yeah.
Fantastic. Once again, drum opening to that song. I mean, powerful, man. Really powerful. I thought that should have been a big hit, but it just wasn't a big hit, at least in the United States.
We didn't, as I said, the band was in the throes of breaking up. We were supposed to go on a tour to promote that record. We had just gone from Capitol over to MCA Records. We had a new contract, and we announced that we weren't going to go on tour. So MCA pulled the plug on any promotion of that record, and it just kind of let it do what it's going to do. And I think it was highly underrated, simply because it just didn't get the exposure.
Yeah, it's a fantastic record. I mean, it's mid '76. You also have disco coming up.
It was coming.
Yeah, and I think that probably played a role.
Oh, sure did. Yeah.
In the way record companies were thinking.
Yep.
That the whole landscape of rock and roll music was kind of being pushed aside.
Yep.
Because they saw the amount of money that disco could make.
Yep.
And
radio too. Radio changed focus too. It did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another great song I thought on that record, though, that really Pass It Around. I thought it was a great rock song. Kind of a go out on Sunday afternoon in a convertible, and put that on the radio.
Go on out and pass it around. Yeah, great. I just signed to Don Brewer. That's kind of cool. That song is it was that came on after Can You Do It? It followed up Can You Do It?
Yeah.
And the way it was mixed from Can You Do It, it just slid right into it. It was done so brilliantly.
Yeah, drum intro, down. Great song.
Yes, a really good one. Another favorite of mine, and I don't like to use the word mine because I feel like I represent all these thousands and millions of rock fans who love your band, but Out to Get You, man. I'm here. I heard that the first time. I said, oh man, this is killer. That's one of your compositions, right?
Yes, yeah.
Right, Out to Get You. And who plays the guitar solo on that? Was that Frank Zappa?
That's Frank Zappa, yeah.
Did he do the whole entire guitar solo?
Yes, it was his solo, right?
That's what I thought. Because there are people who've argued that said that some of it was Zappa, some of it was Foreigner, but it's all him.
It's all Frank. We did that track, and then we said, hey, because Frank was spending all of his time in the control room, and we finished that, and we said, hey, Frank, you want to play lead on this? And he said, yeah, and so he jumped on it.
And I mean, Frank Zappa fans are really well aware of how great of a guitar player he was.
Right.
I'm not sure if the rest of the world does, but he was one of the best ever.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He put out tons of these albums called guitar, all these different records, just focused on his playing guitar.
Yeah.
Now there was another song on the album that wasn't released on the LP, but came out on the CD version.
Rubberneck.
Rubberneck, which is a very cool tune.
I thought it was too. I thought it was too. That was about a trip that Craig Frost, the keyboard player, and I took to Jamaica. We decided one weekend, let's go to Jamaica, you know. So we just, okay, let's go to Jamaica. And we get on an airplane and we fly over to Jamaica. We get off the airplane, and man, we were just, everybody was, you know, trying to grab us, you know, at the airport, you know, hey, come on, man, get into our car, you know, and you know, and they wanted to take you out in the woods and sell you pot, you know, and sell you ganja. And then, you know, but we had heard, don't get in the car with any of these guys, you won't, you know, because you won't come back, you know. So, you know, and that was their term for the tourists over there, was rubberneck, you know. So that the whole song was about, rubberneck, do you want buy ganja? Rubberneck, if you want, you follow me home. You know, so yeah, that's what the song was about.
So, I mean, what happened? Why was it? Because it just couldn't fit on the record, or who makes that decision?
Yeah, I think it was, you know, it is a little just outside, you know, outside the scope, you know, I guess the record company wasn't wild about the song. Let's put it that way.
It's very different from the rest of the record.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, unless you're listening.
But today it's harmless. You know, back then it was a little on the edge. You know, you're talking about, you know, these guys, these natives in Jamaica. You know, taking people out and killing them about, you know, over buying ganja. And, you know, they didn't like the content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, who decides? I mean, who decided, you know, what songs would go on an album and what songs would be left?
Well, we would try to, you know, it was pretty much our choice. You know, we'd go through and, you know, we'd put our best foot forward and go, you know, we all in kind of a democratic, you know, way. You know, this one doesn't quite make it. This one does. You know, let's go with this bunch. We didn't really record like 30 or 40 songs for these records. You know, we would maybe only have one or two left over.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, so it wasn't a big selection, because when you're making 2 records a year, you know, it wasn't like, you know, 1 record every 2 years. It was like 2 records a year. You didn't have time to be recording 30 songs, you know.
Right, you were just trying to get enough for the album, maybe a B-side if needed.
There you go.
So you're still on tour, because I want to make sure to promote your tour here. You're still on tour. You're promoting pretty much the 50th anniversary of We're an American Band.
Yes.
Correct. And the tour is continuing on into the fall. Is that correct?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We've got shows all the way out to December, and now we're gonna do about 45 shows this year, and it's been a great year. We're having a lot of fun.
And you have on guitar now. You have Bruce is on guitar.
Bruce Kulick from Kiss is playing guitar with us. You know,
we interviewed him recently. Yeah.
Max Carl from 38 Special is singing lead with us, and Tim Cashin from Bob Seger's band is playing keyboards. And this is the same band that we've been touring with now for 23 years. So it's tried and true.
You guys sound great. I've watched some of your shows. You know, there's some stuff on YouTube that you can see. Some of your entire shows are on there.
Yeah.
But you guys look like you're having a lot of fun, or really
we are.
Time, you know, on stage there, and the audiences are going crazy.
Yeah, they're having a ball. Yeah.
It's good to still have Grand Funk Railroad in our lives.
I agree.
How about, is there any other thoughts of putting out a new album, or is that something you just don't feel like doing?
You know, we're focused on doing the live shows, you know, and we do new stuff in our show. And if a guy has, you know, one of the guys has a new song, you know, we'll work it up, we'll try it out. Over the course of the 23 years, we've had a lot of songs that have come and gone in the show. So, you know, that's a little fun for us. We focus on doing the hits, the Grand Funk hits in the shows, because we know that's what the people want. So we don't stray too far from that, but you know, we give ourselves a little fun every now and then. Yeah.
Sure. So I guess it's just you're doing what you feel like doing. You're just doing what you want to do. I don't want to keep you much longer. You've spent a lot of time talking with me, and I really appreciate it. But I have to.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate it. Yeah, I've got another. I'm getting dinged here. I got another interview waiting.
Okay, so. Then I'll let you go then.
All right.
And I appreciate the time, and You've brought me great joy throughout my entire life, as well as millions of other people. And thank you so much, Don.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank
All
you
right.
much.
Good
All
luck
right.
in the rest of the tour.
Have a
See
good
you
one,
next
man.
time.
Thank you.
Bye bye.